All right, before we begin this interview, I'd like to inform you that you are being recorded. Do you consent to being recorded and further publication of this interview?
Yes.
Okay. For informative purposes, please state your name and your current educational position.
I'm Jeffrey Johnson, and I'm current principal at Bluefield Intermediate School in Mercer County, West Virginia.
Okay, great. Mr. Johnson, if you don't mind, tell me a little about yourself and your educational background.
Okay. Well, in education, I got started about 8 years ago. Started off actually through the Transition to Teach program in McDowell County. I had a degree in criminal justice and decided I wanted to get into education and got involved in coaching and some different things. So got started. My first opportunity was a long-term sub at Mountain View High School, and that was where I was led to the Transition to Teach program. And from there, I got into the program, started the next semester teaching special education at Mountain View. Spent a year there, and then from there moved over to Riverview High School in McDowell County. Spent 2 years in the classroom there, and then we had a couple situations with administration where our principal got sick, and I had taken on some roles for lunch detention, in-school suspension things, and they asked me to step in as or to consider maybe going to get my admin degree in my educational leadership. So to go ahead and get my master's through that and consider maybe applying for one of the administrative positions. So I did that. Luckily enough, next year I got the opportunity to be the Dean of Students and Athletic Director at Riverview. Spent a year there doing that and then moved on. And now I went on to the middle school at Bluefield Middle as assistant principal. Spent 2 years doing that, and I've been in this current position at Bluefield Intermediate School. It's a 3 through 5 elementary school. I've been there for a year and a half.
Okay, great. Now, I got a few questions I'd like for you to answer, if you can. Number one being, prior to your appointment to principal at Bluefield Intermediate, how many years did you teach in the classroom, and which subjects did you teach?
Okay, I taught, 1 year at Mountain View, 2 years at Riverview. I only spent 3 years in the classroom, and that was at the high school level, teaching special education. Right. And they had me teaching math in special ed at the high school level.
Okay. When you were in the classroom, what educational research were you able to conduct?
Well, my story is a little bit different because I was actually earning my degree through the Transition to Teach while I was teaching. So it was a neat situation because a lot of the things and research I was doing, I could apply to my classroom during that time. So one of the things I can really remember making an impact on me was learning the different learning styles of the students and understanding how different students just catch on to different types of my instruction differently, and how I could really try to meet the needs of each different student while I was doing. And that was really an eye-opener for me, not only with teaching kids, but when I was talking to them about just the everyday life and how to survive and how to get through school and be a productive member of society and following the rules and different things. And even up to today, realizing that some kids, you got to do this to get to them, and there's other kids you got to do this, and how to make that light bulb go off in their head. That was something that I still use today.
Okay. In regards to that research that we just talked about, how do you feel it affected your ability to teach and your students' abilities to learn?
Well, just like I said, it was I started to understand, instead of sitting here, trying to force feed this one strategy of how I was teaching to all of my kids, or even right now, every kid that comes in my office or every teacher I deal with, whatever, I have to try to figure out what kind of person this is. And when I can figure out how they learn the best and how they understand it the best, then we don't waste time trying to, explain it just how I want to explain it. I can explain it how they understand it. And it's a lot less frustrating for both parties when you're doing that. So seeing someone, understand something and continue to improve in a certain area when you're teaching to their needs and what they want and how they learn. That's been very beneficial for me throughout my whole career.
I'm sure. How do you feel that research has overall affected your career as a teacher?
Well, as time goes on, they're constantly coming out with different, strategies, different things that you can do to improve upon, your trade or whatever. And I found that I've always taken the approach that I want to continue to improve regardless of where I'm at and what I'm doing. I want to continue to try to be the best I can be. It goes back to the coaching days. Pretty
Right,
competitive,
absolutely.
so you want to do the best you can and be the best you can. So for me, if someone else has something that they're doing that is very beneficial or makes this job a lot easier or more effective, then I want to find out how they're doing it. So the only way you can do that is continue to try to look at research and different things that are coming out. And a lot of research is definitely backed by data, and you can't deny the data when it's there. That's the proof of behind a lot of stuff. And a lot of times the numbers don't lie. So unfortunate, however you want to look at it, a lot of times how I'm judged on how I'm doing is based on the data, and
Right.
how successful my school is and things. So I've got to take that into mind, and if that's how they're going to judge me, then I'm going to find out how I can get better in that area. So just continuing to improve, continuing to look for things. It's always been beneficial for me to do that.
Okay. Now, focusing more on your administrative role versus the role you serve as a teacher, in your opinion, what research or type of research has been the most beneficial to you as an administrator?
Well, making the transition from the classroom into administration, one thing that I realized, and this has been most recently with this job at the intermediate school, prior to this job, I was responsible for athletics and just kind of the discipline and the overall functioning of the school and things. I hadn't really been asked to dig into the curriculum because we had a curriculum of instruction person at Riverview, and then when I got to the middle school, the principal kind of headed that up. But when I took this job, I'm the only one there. I don't have an assistant, so I really had to dig into the curriculum aspect of it and make sure that we were delivering the content and the standards, in an effective way, and making sure the students were getting what they needed. So the biggest thing I had to do is try to figure out, how I can ensure that we're doing that. And looking at it now, something that I didn't do when I was teaching that I would do if I went back into teaching, and something that is basing everything, starting with the standards and moving from there. Going back and saying, this is the standards that West Virginia or Virginia or whoever wants us to teach. I want to base all my instruction from there and start from there to, plan my lessons or whatever. And when I realized as an administrator that I got to ensure the teachers are doing that, that's when I started noticing the big difference, because so often I went into classrooms and I found that teachers were relying on the whatever curriculum we've adopted for our math or for our reading or whatever, social studies, and they're relying on that to touch all the standards. And as long as they completed page 1 through page 500, they felt that they were meeting the standards
Right.
of West Virginia. But it really doesn't work that way. That is a tool that we use to teach and to make sure that you can teach those standards. But really and truthfully, I should look at my class as a whole and say, this class, if I want to teach this standard, this is how I want to teach it. And when I got into this position, realizing that that's how I need to focus, my instruction, and making sure that that's what's going on at this school, that's where it's been the biggest difference for me. So that being through research and through, professional development, Mercer County has provided me, and that's been huge for me.
Okay. Has any type of educational research that you've partaken in changed your opinion on the current issues in education or that you might face in your school?
Yeah, I just now completed the Principal Leadership Academy, and I I went into this not really knowing what I was going to get out of it, but when I completed it, I realized that it was really, really beneficial for me, because exactly what I was talking about, when you go in and you have teachers that are doing something, some of these teachers have been 5 years, 7 years, 10 years doing something, it's hard to go in and tell them that you want them to go or to tweak it or to go into a different direction when I've only been 3 years into the classroom. And it was a little bit tough, going in and doing that to some of them and trying to get them to buy into what I'm trying to get them to do. But a lot of the things through the Principal Leadership Academy and some of the books and studies they've given me, one that I'm reading right now is it's called If You Don't Feed the Teacher, They'll Eat the Students. But it's been some really good strategies on how you can talk to teachers about different things and how you can make them feel like they're giving you input and just providing them with the support you need, but doing it in an effective way where you're not stepping on anyone's toes. So through research, through collaboration with other administrators, through the PLA classes and things like that, it's really changed, because I was under the approach when I was teaching that when my boss walked in or my principal walked in, they told me to do something, I was going to do it. But not everybody's like that. I didn't have the seniority and the experience that some of these other people have, so it's a little harder. Not everybody has that approach, so you have to, find a way to effectively, communicate with them and get what you want out of them, but do it in a way where you're not, offensive or offending them or, stepping on their toes or making them feel like they're not, you're not taking into account their professional, abilities.
Okay. Final question, Mr. Johnson. How do you personally determine when reviewing educational research if the information is valid and usable?
Well, and this is probably something I could do a better job at, but in Mercer County, one thing that I really enjoy about being here is our administrators, my bosses, and the assistant superintendent and the superintendent, they are constantly updating us with different ideas and different things we need to look at and ways to improve and providing professional development. And I typically they lead lead us in a direction they want us to go and what we want to do. So they'll give us, for instance, the book I'm reading, they're the one that provided me with it. They sent me to the Principal's Leadership Academy and different things. But they'll often, if you're having struggles or there's something that you really want to explore more into, they'll give you some guidance on which way to go, or somebody who's done this, or maybe some areas to look for answers for that problem or whatever. But also whenever you're doing your evaluations with them, they'll point out your weaknesses and tell you some areas where you need to improve, and then they'll give you also some areas where you could look at to do that. So Mercer County's been good, but I probably could do a better job of finding some areas myself and making sure that these things are valid and everything. But most of the time it's through some of the book studies or some of the things that collaboration and professional development that Mercer County is providing.
Okay, great. Mr. Johnson, I would like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity and for your participation in this interview. Do you have any questions or concerns regarding any of the previous questions or anything further at this time?
And that's it.
All right. Once again, thank you, and I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.